Welcome to Roll, Ponder, and Play, a podcast dedicated to crafting stories through the application of role-playing game engines, combined with creative thinking and propelled into the ether by the barest of prompts. I'm Jared Hess, taking on all the roles of Game Master, Solo Player, Author, and Narrator. Come with me on a journey, and together let us explore realms of shadow, danger, and wonder. One role can decide the fate of many things. Welcome to episode 36 of the Queen of Shadows podcast on Roll, Ponder, and Play. I'm Jared Hess, Game Master, Solo Player, Author, and Narrator. In our previous episode, Eilwen and Aron split the party, leaving Seith with Valeri and her children with a few supplies hidden in the countryside around Longfalls. The twins make their way west toward Highcrag, about a day's journey by foot, to confront Delos, the Iron Priest. En route, around midday, at a road junction that splits off to the north, they are ambushed by warriors dressed in mottled greens and browns, bearing bows, spears, and daggers, who had come from that northern road. After they defeat the warriors, Aron interrogates the sole survivor. They find that these warriors were advanced scouts for Uzak's warband, who is heading south towards this region. But they learn little more when their captor bleeds out. Eilwen mercy kills him, and she and Aron take the 3 mounts from the scouts and any supplies they were carrying and continue west towards Highcrag. As we begin this episode, Eilwen's stats are Edge 2, Heart 1, Iron 1, Shadow 3, Wits 2. Current assets: Archer, initial box; Cutthroat, initial box; Shadowwalk, initial box. Current statuses: Supply 3 out of 5, Spirit 1 out of 5, Health 5 out of 5, Momentum 4 out of 10. Current debilities: None. Failure track 10 out of 24. Current unspent XP 3. And now, on to episode 36 of Queen of Shadows. Eilwen decided that Highcrag had been aptly named. The road that led to the settlement wound its way up and up through granite-scarred highland terrain, large hills that spread over the land like the windings of some decaying stone serpent, where the constant cycle of freeze and thaw had ruptured it, causing its scales to slough off on its eastern face into falls of granite scree. The iron-shod hooves of their mounts clattered sharply whenever their road crossed over these patches of rock. As they topped one of the largest mounds, Eilwen reined in her mount, its sides still heaving from their fast leave-taking near the river and the pace they had set earlier in the afternoon. Wind tugged at her braided hair as she looked across a valley that spread out beneath her, roughly circular in shape, like a shallow pan, but dotted with smaller hills and paved with a carpet of thigh-high grasses that undulated from the caressing wind. All this was framed by jutting granite mountains on the western side of the valley. The dark clouds that had earlier threatened rain had followed through with their promised dousing, and the downpour had caught them 2 hours hence. But they had ridden through, anxious to put distance between them and any possible pursuit. Thankfully, once they had gained the heights, a strong westerly wind had shredded the gray cloud bank, leaving ribbons of dark clouds that were even now tinged on their underside with burnished golds and crimsons from the afternoon sun's drop to the west. Gashes in the clouds behind them, revealing a deep, almost violet blue sky in the east. The stiff breeze had dried their clothes and gear in short order, and now whipped hair and horse mane alike about them. Aron pulled up his horse next to hers. "What is it?" "There, to the west. That must be Highcrag," she said, and pointed to a flat outcropping of craggy rock on the other side of the wide grassy valley. She saw that a hardy folk had, at one time, built a somewhat large collection of stone houses with wooden roofs atop the flat outcropping of rock that jutted and flared out eastward from one of the mountains that continued to rise above it to the west. The road led to a narrow saddle that in turn led to a promontory of rock upon which Highcrag had been built. "A strange place to build a settlement," she murmured. "I don't see any water source." "Could be a mountain spring or some such," Aron said. "Aye," she agreed. "It's a defensible place, though," Aron grunted, shielding his eyes with a hand from the dying sun. "Look at it there, a single approachable route across that narrow saddle, see? Raiders would have a hard time posing a threat to the homes there without first gaining that ground." "Similar to Frostbridge," Eilwen nodded, making the connection to home. "One way in, one way out." The bridge of ice had allowed their settlement to remain free from the ravages of other raiders long before Uzak's time. But she knew such terrain also made it susceptible to a siege. She hoped that Father had managed to keep it free from Uzak's grasping hands thus far. She pulled her cloak about her, though it wasn't yet late afternoon. With the horses, their journey time from their encounter with Uzak's scouts near the stream had been cut in half. However, the sun had begun to descend past the rim of the mountains already, and now, like some dark and malevolent hand of doom, the shadows from the surrounding peaks began to lengthen and creep across the writhing grasslands that bent this way and that to the hissing winds. Scratch had found a boulder near the edge of the hill, and he leaped off of it, gliding in a slow circle, his wide wings catching the winds from the west that flowed up the grassy slope. He banked and then suddenly folded them, falling and then flaring his wings out again to repeat the process. He appeared to be practicing his innate skill of flight. He flapped his wings and rose, returning to their hill. Then he settled on a boulder and looked down at her imperiously. "We better keep moving. I'd like to arrive well and truly before nightfall," she said. Aron nodded, and they urged their mounts forward, setting off down the slope of the hill into the hissing grasses, and it seemed to Eilwen that they were upon fleshy barks, descending a huge windward wave of greenery, kissed with an orange tint from the waning sun. As they rode to the west, Eilwen continued to study Highcrag as it loomed ever nearer. "Does she see any movement? On a 50-50 chance, I get a 4, which is a no." The place seemed devoid of all life. Perhaps all who had been able to flee the magical desolation already had. She couldn't see any cook fires, at least not yet. Admittedly, she realized as she drew beneath the shadow of the stretching southern face of the jutting promontory that rose above them, that her angle of surveillance and ability to see into Highcrag proper diminished sharply. She could only study the dwellings built nearest the edge of the splintered cliffs, and there was little to see as the empty squarish holes that made up windows seemed to stare down at her like the dead sockets of a wind-swept, raven-pecked skull. They made their way up the winding road that at first was wide enough for perhaps 2 wagons abreast. It rose in serpentine switchbacks above them. The ground grew rockier as they climbed, and the clatter of their horses' hooves off the rocks juxtaposed and accentuated the gloomy silence that seemed to ooze out of the rock itself. As they rose in height, switchback after switchback, and their horses began to breathe heavily from the steep climb, nostrils flaring, Their vantage point gradually improved until, eventually, cresting the final rise where the road leveled off and turned north and narrowed further, barely wide enough for a single large wagon to move across the narrow saddle into Highcrag itself. They could now see down into the dead settlement. They saw a few winding streets, surrounded by many stone houses, with wooden-framed roofs layered with thatch. A few of the roofs were already crumbling to ruin. To their east, ever-stretching mountain shadows stretched and yawned, chasing away the sunlight across the grasses. The mountain that had birthed the promontory rose sharply above them to their west, now finally blocking the stiff western wind that had curved around the mountain and had buffeted them upon their approach. From her saddle, Eilwen patted her mount's sweaty neck. The clatter of hooves on the rocky road behind her heralded Aron's arrival, and together they studied Highcrag for a long moment prior to making entrance. Okay, let's ask some questions about Highcrag. Is there a wall and a gate? 50-50 chance on a 7, I get a yes. Is the gate broken? 50-50 chance on an 8, I get a yes. Does it look like it was hit by some large force? 50-50 chance. On a 10, I get a yes and. Does it appear that whatever smashed the gate originated from inside the settlement? 50-50 chance, and on an 8, I get a yes. What happened? Aron asked, half to himself, reining in his horse, eyes darting around for danger. I don't know, Eilwen said quietly, and after a moment, when nothing happened, she urged her horse forward. Let's get a closer look. At the northern end of the saddle, the side closest to Highcrag, a wall of stone met the road, such that one side permitted entrance through a single gate. A gate that lay in ruins, flung pieces of stone and wood scattered upon the road. They approached cautiously, moving slowly across the mountain's saddle. As they approached, they saw wooden splinters from the gate sprawled across the road. The walls of those buildings closest to the gate looked as if they had been shoved inwards as well, by some massive invisible hand. They passed through the gate, and Eilwen saw more splinters inside the settlement. Whatever had caused this, it had come from inside the settlement. Aron noticed it too. What caused this devastation? Aron asked, nudging aside a fallen piece of masonry with his foot. A bear like the great silverback at Frostbridge we fought? Eilwen thought back to the day they had left Frostbridge, the attack of the massive, silver-furred bear that had left a longhouse of shambles. I don't think so, she said slowly. Those walls look like something smashed through them here, but... You mean like lightning, maybe? Let's ask the Oracle. Is there any blackened stone or something from a lightning strike or something similar that could cause this damage? On a 50-50 chance, with a roll of a 2, I get a no. I've never seen lightning smash through stone like this, Eilwen said. Besides, there's no scorch or soot marks from either lightning or flame. Something forced the gate open from the inside out. Notice the debris there on the saddle and down below? She pointed to rock and wood scattered in the shadows upon the rocks far below. They tied their mounts to a hitching post, and with weapons drawn, began their investigation of Highcrag. Do they see any dead bodies in the streets? There's a 50-50 chance, but on a roll of a 4, I get a no. I don't like it, Aron said. Weren't there supposed to be dead bodies everywhere? Where are the fallen? Maybe they cleaned them up or burned them on some funeral pyre, she said. Who? There's no one here, Aron asked. He was right. They didn't see anyone in the streets. Near the center of the settlement, they saw some larger buildings that rose rather precariously above the height of other surrounding edifices. Some were 2 and even 3 stories high. "Let's try those," Eilwen said. They moved down the street towards the center of Highcrag. Let's ask a few more oracle questions. The big one, is Delos waiting for them? I think there's a 50-50 chance. But on a roll of a 3, I get a no. Are there other buildings in the town that look like they were also damaged by the force at the gate? On a 50-50 chance, I get a 7, which is a yes. More devastation awaited them as they proceeded towards the center of the settlement. More buildings had walls shoved inwards and some collapsed roofs. Some of the larger buildings, too, had taken the brunt of some mammoth force. "Let's look around some," Eilwen said. This is a gather information, plus Eilwen's wits. I rolled a 6 on the action dice, plus 2 for her wits is an 8, against a 7, and a 7 on the challenge dice for a strong hit and a positive match. On a strong hit, you discover something helpful and specific. The path you must follow or action you must take to make progress is made clear. Envision what you learn and take plus 2 momentum. Momentum is now 4 out of 10. Eilwen and Aron entered the large building, and soon after their eyes adjusted to the interior gloom. Do they see any dead bodies inside? I think that is somewhat unlikely. On a roll of a 6, I get a no, but... They didn't see any bodies, but there were signs of some sort of struggle. Eilwen noticed the overturned chairs, a broken table, bloodied weapons, and spilled wax from an overturned candelabra. Some parchment scrolls tied with leather bands, along with others that were untied, lay scattered in rumpled heaps about the ruined table. They listened, but didn't hear the sounds of any threats. "I'll look about," Aron said. "Be careful," she said. "You too." And he strode off into another room. Eilwen nodded, then she turned and crouched by the floor, searching amidst the broken furniture. She picked up some of the parchment scrolls, untied them, and began to read. The mountain shadow that had loomed over Highcrag presented a long twilight, and she squinted, trying to make out the writings. Does Aron find anything interesting? I think it is somewhat unlikely, but on a roll of a 10, the oracle says yes, and... Let's ask the mag, Mark's Adventure Glyphs on RPGsolo.com, what he found. Wood door, a compass, reforged scimitar, house on fire, battery power zap, some disc-like thing, a battery, cards, crown over a heart, axe. I think I'll use the compass and crown/heart for this. Sister, Aron frowned. I've found something. I think you ought to see it. He pulled out a curious device, a flat iron disc roughly the height and width of his fist with a hole through the center. Runes were etched across its surface. "One moment," Eilwen said, sitting on the floor, distracted. "Listen at this." She spread out a fresh parchment that had fallen amidst the ravaged table across the stone floor. "I can read this, Aron. It was written by Delos." "It was? What does it say?" He looked down at her. Eilwen cleared her throat and began to read. "The council tried to stop me. Idiots. Don't they know that when he speaks, I obey? One does not question the stirrings of the divine. One acts." More townsfolk continue to flee, fearing the powers that he blesses us with. What is there to fear? After all, the shades help us become our true selves. It is no illness, but a blessing. But they cannot see it. Eilwen felt a prickle on the back of her neck. "He's mad if he thinks that," Aron said. "Doesn't he know what they were going to do to Longfalls? To what those things must have done here?" He waved his axe at the lonely abode. In the silence of a dead home, they only heard the wind scratching at doors, causing them to moan on rusty hinges and whisper at the windows, eddies of air fluttering the pile of parchments. Eilwen scanned ahead and frowned. He certainly doesn't see it that way. Listen to this. "Everything that I've done," she read, "I've done for the good of Highcrag, but they won't see it. Don't they know that even if we fall, we rise again to a second life, able to hear his voice, to serve him further? Such sacrifices only make us stronger. Our spirits become more pure, and purity of purpose is what we need." "What is he rambling about?" Aron grumbled. "He is mad." The wind began to pick up outside, blasting the rock with its temperamental breath. Eilwen continued reading. "They blame everything on me, but they cannot stop his will, though they try. Thomlin, ever faithful servant that he is, warned me that a faction acts against me. They have convinced the others that I am a threat instead of a bringer of enlightenment. The fools shut the gates against me, preventing me from leaving." "The next day he continues here," Eilwen said, pointing at the bottom of the parchment. She drew the parchment nearer her face and continued reading. "They forbade me from ever visiting the sacred pillar again. Bah! If they think it is evil, then it is they who are misguided, too lost in their own fear to see the truth. They seek to imprison me until the council can hold a trial. There's no time for that. I feel the stirrings within me. He calls and I must act. I have imbued the stone with his life. Now we'll see if mere wood and stone can contain his will, whether it can contain me." "So he was the one who did that to the gate," Aron grunted. "Does the parchment say what happened to the dead townsfolk?" 50-50 chance. On a 6, I get a yes, but... "I would imagine so," Eilwen said. "He continues." Her brow furrowed as her eyes and finger traced the runic writings in the pale penumbra wrought by this long afternoon half-light. "The writing is difficult to read, but I can still make it out. The fallen now follow him. He guides their path now. I fear that I am too proud. I must be humble. Humility and purity, that's what I need. For if I'm to bring my dear Seral back, I'll need a pure heart. But set with iron purpose. Let the world know that if I'm successful, they'll praise my name, and I'll usher in a golden age of peace. For death will hold meaning no longer. And surely I will be successful, for he is ever with me." "That's all of it," Eilwen said, lowering the parchment. "Who was he talking about?" Aron asked. "One of the heralds of night?" "I don't know," she said, eyes quickly darting over the script again. "He never gives a name." "He's a fool if he thinks the heralds will bring his who was it, Seral, back to life? Doesn't he know our people's history? What those demons did to us? Why we fled to these shores in the first place?" "Desperate people do desperate things. I do believe the heralds can disguise themselves, though." She thought of Narshiv, bursting the subterranean prison under Greenholm to wreak its ruin upon Queen Morwen's abode. How with cunning and guile it had infiltrated the palace disguised as a human. But she didn't tell Aron how she knew. "But if it's a herald, how could one be here? Across the great expanse? Don't the legends say that water harms them?" "They do say that, yes, but I don't think even the wise and the learned know everything about the heralds," she said, "and what some may be capable of. Perhaps this power he speaks of is in fact a herald. Perhaps it's something else entirely. Either way, we'll have to find Delos to know more. And we at least have a lead. She tapped the reference to the iron pillar on the parchment. His sacred pillar. Aron's mouth twisted in disgust. Do you think that's where he went? I think it's likely. Eilwen, if it's like the one we saw in that underground lake. He swallowed, his face taking on an even paler cast in the dim twilight. I know, she said grimly, but we won't know until we get there. But where is it? Aron asked. Perhaps we'll find the answer in all of this. She indicated the pile of wind-rustled parchments. You keep looking. I'll stay on watch. I can't read all that anyway, he said with a grunt. Mother didn't teach me all that she taught you, he said, and she caught an edge of resentment threading his voice. Eilwen nodded and knelt amidst the rubble and spilled sheets of parchment, ruined table, while Aron peered about them, keeping his hand on his axe haft. She shifted through the sheets and finally drew out a worn-looking sheet larger than the others. It looked much older than the sheets containing Delos's ravings. Her eyes quickly passed over it. It appeared to be a crude map. She spread the map on the floor and saw a rough depiction of the mountain valley they were in, and Highcrag, and the mountain to their west. Her finger moved up the map to the north, swinging around to the north and then west, across the large meadowed vale they were in. A pass between two large mountains further to the northwest led up to another higher meadow, and in the center of that meadow, atop some sort of hill, was a depiction of a spike. There, drawn above the spike, was a rune all too familiar to her now, its twisting lines forming the Scade Triangle. Her heart began to beat in a mixture of excitement, of discovery, and a measure of trepidation in the realization that Delos too used her same Scade rune. Even so, she wasn't doing with it what he was doing. They're just shadows, she muttered to herself. What was that? Aron asked. Nothing. Look, I think it's here, Aron, she said, tracing the spike-like symbol on the map and looking up at her brother, her face serious. He crouched down to take a look and gave a grunt. Then that's where we go, he said, with a grim nod, hand on his axe's haft. But first, this. He passed her the strange-looking disc. She took the strange device and studied it, turning it over and over in her hands, fingers moving over the runes. Does she feel anything upon touching the disc? I think there's a 50-50 chance. But on a 1, I get a no and. It felt dead, like a piece of iron that was missing its soul. That was the only way she could think of it. She gave a frown as her finger brushed across its surface. I wonder what its purpose is, she mused. Or was. Aron shrugged. Maybe it's nothing, just some odd art. It just looked unusual, like those night-blasted iron pillars. No, I think you're right. These fine runes here, she shook her head, moving her finger again over them. Are they runes that she can read? I think there's a 50-50 chance, but on a 2, I get a no. These are different from the runes Mother taught me. The script is more flowing. That's right, Aron nodded. And we've seen runes like this before, remember? In Grimstone? She nodded slowly and fished out the fine elven figurines and placed them on either side of the device. She studied the similar-looking script around their bases. I think you are right. It seems to be of elvish make, most likely. I'm sure they mean something, but we'd need to find someone who understands their script. A later task for a distant day, her brother said. We'd best move out, Eilwen. he added with a dour look as he saw the shadows creep across the yellow stalks of the meadow far below. "I don't relish spending the night here." "Agreed," she said. She gathered up the map to the iron pillar, slipping it into her pack, along with the device Aron had given her. Then they stepped out onto the streets of the lonely and abandoned Highcrag. Okay, we have finished the episode, and it is time for another review. This review comes from Ty Moore, left on Spotify. And Ty writes, "This format teaches as it goes, interspersing mechanics, analysis, and insight with dramatic storytelling. Just as a solo RPG should. Give it a listen." Thank you, Ty. I appreciate that review, and I am glad you enjoy the mixture of both out-of-character instruction and in-character drama. That's what makes this podcast format unique from just a straight audio drama story or just a straight game. It's that special duality between the two. What an interesting little niche genre of podcasting we have, isn't it? Well, thank you again, and continue to listen, invite your friends, and I hope you continue to enjoy it for many episodes to come. If you or anyone else wants to leave a comment, you can do so on your favorite podcatcher out there. I love hearing from listeners. Take care, guys. Have a great one. Bye now. Thank you for joining us, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed what you experienced. If you would like to support Roll, Ponder, and Play, you can do so in a number of ways. You can give the show a positive review on your podcatcher of choice. You can share the show with your friends and family and on your socials. Nothing beats word of mouth as a way to bring in new listeners. You can join my Patreon at patreon.com/rollponderandplay. There you can find show notes and transcripts, as well as other projects I'm involved in. And paid subscribers get access to subscriber-only episodes, shows, and other content. Finally, you can simply reach out to me and say hello. Comments from you are what inspire me to keep doing this, and I'd sincerely love to hear what you think of the show. To do so, you can find me on my Patreon, or on Discord at Roll, Ponder, and Play, or by email at rollponderandplay@gmail.com. Until we meet again on Roll, Ponder, and Play, may your own dice rolls ever bring you success.